A solitary figure with a megaphone disrupts the quiet routines of Uruguayan politics. His target is what he calls the kleptocorporatocracia, a network of global financial interests and international mandates, like the Agenda 2030, that he claims has hijacked national sovereignty. Evaluating his rhetoric through standard political science misses the mechanics of his appeal. Traditional metrics measure the surface of a movement that is increasingly operating beneath it. This political friction leads directly to the 19th century pessimistic metaphysics of Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer viewed the universe as the product of a blind, irrational drive. In this framework, the anti-system activist is reframed as a witness to a deeper, more chaotic reality. Under this lens, Gustavo Salle operates as a subject desperately trying to expose the democratic illusions of the global order. Yet, by confronting these structures with extreme legal and rhetorical friction, he falls into a metaphysical trap, actively affirming the very forces he swears to destroy. Schopenhauer's framework of an ego-driven universe reveals why this specific brand of political rebellion is destined for tragedy. Schopenhauer divided reality into two layers. The first is the world as representation, the orderly, constructed world of appearances, concepts, and institutions we interact with daily. Beneath that surface lies the will. This is the true engine of reality, a blind, insatiable force of endless striving. Schopenhauer borrowed an Eastern concept to explain this interaction. The orderly grid above is the veil of Maya, an illusion hiding the terrifying magma underneath. In contemporary politics, this veil of Maya takes the form of the welfare state, diplomatic protocols, and bipartisan consensus. They project an image of rational administration. Salle positions himself as an epistemological rebel. His objective is to violently tear through this specific political veil and force the public to look at lies beneath. To him, the dark magma driving the state is the unyielding, amoral machinery of global financial capital. It is a force that instrumentalizes nations to ensure its own expansion. He points to transnational organizations, credit rating agencies, and binding international contracts as the direct avatars of this blind will, operating without democratic consent. What conventional analysts dismiss as mere flaws in governance are the system executing its core function perfectly, protected by the comforting disguise of Maya. This theoretical conflict physically manifests in the architecture of the state itself. The grand neoclassical facade of the legislature projects an image of moral reason. The philosopher G.W.F. Hegel viewed the state as the ultimate realization of human ethics and rationality. Schopenhauer rejected this entirely. He argued the state was born purely out of mutual fear. It is a pragmatic contract established by humans to prevent total self-destruction, an instrument to manage our inherent selfishness. This inherent selfishness is driven by what he called the principium individuationis. It is the illusion of individuality that compels every being to preserve its own existence at the expense of others. Salle repeatedly denounces the local political caste, accusing them of fighting ruthlessly for state budgets, bureaucratic positions, and legal privileges. Salle's political caste functions as a collection of individual wills, each acting out a biological and metaphysical necessity for survival and dominance. The parliament, therefore, functions less as a rational forum for debate and more as a formalized arena. It regulates the competition for survival and resource capture. Legislative warfare is simply the will adopting the civilized mask of parliamentary procedure. It allows competing factions to safely devour each other under the guise of public service. Schopenhauer offered a singular, highly demanding solution to escape this tragedy of constant striving: asceticism. True salvation requires absolute quietism. The subject must reach a state of complete resignation, systematically denying the desires of the ego until the will itself is silenced. Salle's methodology in the streets and media stands in stark contrast. He relies on apocalyptic rhetoric, high-decibel confrontation, and relentless public outrage. His tactic of filing massive penal denunciations against government officials is a form of hyperactive, litigious engagement with the very state apparatus he condemns. The absolute stillness required for Schopenhauerian asceticism cracks and erupts into a scream in Salle's political persona. The quiet denial of desire is replaced by intense, vibrating friction. Philosophically, this rage does not deny the will, it is a fierce, agonistic affirmation of it. The constant battle against the system fuels the ego rather than starving it. This exposes the grand illusion of the anti-system rebel. Utilizing the state's own aggressive, legalistic tools ensures that the rebel remains securely bound by the state's internal logic. By vowing to fight the corporatocracy with a knife between his teeth, Salle abandons asceticism. In his supreme effort to destroy the system, he becomes one of the most intense embodiments of the will. This is his ultimate political paradox. The radical outsider enters parliament to fight it from within. It mirrors Laocoon entangled by sea serpents. Dismantling a state using its own bureaucratic mechanisms is a metaphysical absurdity. For Schopenhauer, human character is unalterable. You cannot legislate away egoism, nor convince the will to stop desiring. The final trap is Schopenhauer's pendulum, swinging between two states. On one side, the pain of unfulfilled desire, failing to defeat the global system. On the other, boredom. If his dissent is absorbed into parliament, his radical energy dissipates into procedural tedium. His political project is suspended permanently between these two poles. It is a rebellion that can neither fully succeed nor peacefully surrender. Salle audaciously exposes the miseries of the political theater, but by combating the will with its own weapons, he proves that while the will readily changes its masks, it never changes its nature.